big boys. Have a great day, Africa.
And find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tamengubene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joel Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till... The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. Iran's ambassador to the UN has called the U.S. attacks on the Iranian nuclear facilities blatant aggression. The U.S. State Department has issued a global warning advising American citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution as the world anticipates Iran's response to the attack. Speaking during an emergency session of the UN Security Council, Amir Saeed Iravani dismissed accusations that Tehran was seeking nuclear weapons.
The United States, a permanent member of this council, and the only state that has ever used nuclear weapons, murdering millions in 2 cities, has now once again resorted to illegal force, waged a war against my country under a fabricated and absurd pretext, preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. What a bitter and tragic irony.
U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted the possibility of a change of leadership in Iran. Trump said while it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, if the current Iranian government is unable to, in his words, make Iran great again, then why wouldn't there be a change? The BBC's Sarah Smith reports.
Throughout yesterday, senior US officials sought to emphasize that the airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites did not mean that America had gone to war with the country. But then Donald Trump posted a statement on social media that seemed to contradict that message. There are 40,000 American troops on bases and warships in the Middle East who are now on high alert as the Pentagon is braced for retaliation from Iran. The US State Department has issued a global warning advising American citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution.
As South Africa grapples with the outbreak of foot and mouth disease, the Department of Agriculture has urged owners of cloven-hooved animals to limit their movements. Flare-ups have been reported over the past several months in 5 of the 9 provinces, with the KwaZulu-Natal province being the worst affected. Last week, the Department of Agriculture announced that it is building up vaccine stocks and expanding inoculations to curb the spread of the disease. South Africa's National Correctional Services Commissioner, Makgoti Thobakgale, says they are stepping up efforts to improve leadership and tighten controls to keep contrabands out of prison facilities. He was speaking to the media during a raid at ODI Correctional Services Centre in Mabubane in Pretoria last night. Contraband, including dagga and cell phones, were recovered during the search and operations. Thobakgale says prison officers found to be colluding with inmates in smuggling contrabands into correctional facilities will face consequences.
Well, there are officials that are going through disciplinary processes. Even here, there are 2 officials that have been suspended. And that's the work that management has been doing. But we have identified that we need to come in and strengthen their hand in dealing with contrabands and in ensuring that the center, is free from illegal substances and objects.
Lastly, Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has reiterated the government's desire for the late former President Edgar Lungu to be buried in Zambia. This despite an ongoing dispute over funeral arrangements. The family of Lungu is expected to make an announcement on the arrangements this week. Lungu will be laid to rest in South Africa, becoming the first former head of state of another country to be buried in the country. Hichilema also cut short a period of national mourning last week after Lungu's family refused to allow his body to be repatriated from South Africa as planned. He made the remarks during a high-level meeting in Lusaka with a delegation from South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, led by the Minister of International Relations and Cooperations, Ronald Lamola.
Our wish has been very clear that we would like the mortal remains of President Lungu, our sixth president, to be buried in his home country, Zambia, and not in any other country. And I think these are the issues amongst many we've discussed, and we're grateful to President Ramaphosa for his graciousness and his government, the people of South Africa. We continue seeking a solution, a civilized solution, I must say.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports report, we'll look at the appointment of a new head coach for South African football side Orlando Pirates, who finished second in the Betway Premiership and reached the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League last season. Former Banyana defender Nkumatlo advises Banyana to be united if they want to make it far in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco starting in July. And Kenya is preparing a contingent of 45 athletes for the 2025 CAA Under-18 and Under-20 African Championships holding in Abeokuta, Nigeria. More on this and other stories at 12:35 Central African Time.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, it is 12:07 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our sports headlines and Onele Ntsinzi with our news update. We are on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now, join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126, hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on hashtag Africa Update asks, how can communities assist the youth in fulfilling their dreams? It is still Youth Month in South Africa. And we'd like to know, not only in South Africa, but across the continent and the globe, how can communities assist youth in fulfilling their dreams? Share your thoughts on all our social media platforms. It is 12:09 Central African Time.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
O surto da cólera em Angola tem causado grande preocupação, afetando já mais de metade das províncias do país. Simultaneamente, a Agência dos Estados Unidos para o Desenvolvimento Internacional, USAID, um dos maiores doadores mundiais de assistência humanitária, decidiu não priorizar os países com maior incidência de malária. Para discutirmos as causas do alastramento da cólera em Angola e os impactos dessa decisão da USAID, convidamos o Dr. Jeremias Agostinho, médico e mestre em saúde pública, para partilhar a sua visão sobre o tema.
A doença, nesse momento, representa o maior risco de saúde pública que nós temos. Nos últimos anos, a nossa preocupação esteve sempre centrado com os casos de malária, os casos de tuberculose e também de infecção por VIH-Sida. A forma como, em pouco menos de 2 meses, os casos de cólera vêm aumentando, acaba por representar, nessa altura, um dos maiores desafios que o país tem. É expectável que, nesta fase, o número de casos venha a aumentar.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 10 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our King Bubaraye Dakola, representing residents of Nigeria's Bayelsa state, appeared in court demanding oil giant Shell be blocked from its planned divestment until the company does an environmental cleanup and compensates the community. For more on the legal battle against Shell, we are joined on the line by King Dakolo. King Dakolo, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to you.
Now, can you tell us more about this legal battle against Shell?
Okay, the legal battle is necessitated by the fact that Shell is planning to leave our environment and go offshore without first restoring the environment and ensuring that the people's livelihood are returned to what it used to be. Shell has been around here for over 60 years, and it has spilled crude, it is still flaring gas, and has killed people over the years. And from the reports we have, both from the hospital, where people die more of cancer than anything else, and then the biostate experts' reports, biological reports and physiological reports, all show that people are poisoned with chromium, with BTEX hydrocarbons, short and long chain hydrocarbons, and all of that. And the rivers are so polluted that Shell cannot just walk away. In fact, the biostate environmental report recommended that Shell should use $1 billion every year to try to restore the people. But Shell is to do that for 12 years, which means 12 billion. But Shell wants to escape without doing that and to hand over to someone we don't quite know that has the competence. Shell has old rusty pipelines in the soil and in the river, and then old abandoned wellheads everywhere, which have been erupting. So if they go, it will keep erupting and people will die more and people will suffer more. And we believe that Shell has a responsibility, either directly or vicariously, to ensure that our environment is restored and our livelihoods are restored.
Now, when is the court expected to make its ruling?
It will take a while because I just started on the 20th of this month, and then Shell did not appear in court. I don't know why, but they didn't appear in court. It has been adjourned to July 22nd this year, which is next month. But it had just started, and it is going to take a while, but we believe that we will win because we cannot continue to exist in an environment that is so polluted, and it is deliberately done. Shell doesn't do this in their own home countries, in Europe and so on. So why should they do it here in Africa? Why should they do it here in Bayelsa State in the Niger Delta of Nigeria? That's a question.
Now, King Dakwolo, what is government's involvement, if any, in this case?
Well, the government is the regulator, and the regulator in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria is completely comatose. It has been aiding and abetting Shell and all other IOCs in the despoilation of the environment and the pillaging of the people's resources. So they are sued along with Shell because the regulator is supposed to ordinarily have followed due process in this whole thing. But because they have failed, they are also sued that they have to answer as well. And of course, the Minister of Petroleum is the federal government as well.
And in terms of this particular case, it's clearly going to open doors and open the eyes of people, not only in Nigeria or the continent, but across the globe. Why do you think Shell is able to, use the environment and with people, obviously you touched on people getting sick, the environment not being as arable as it used to, and the issues of old piping and machinery that is used. Why is Shell able to get away with such a crisis, for lack of a better word?
Okay, yes. The reason why Shell has been getting away is that the DPR, that's the regulator, DPR right now is called NUPRC, has been a compromised establishment. When Shell is when the DPR, for instance, wants to go and inspect facilities or damages that have been caused Shell pays for helicopter for them. Shell pays for lodging for them. Shell gives them bribes to ensure that the outcome is blamed on the people rather than on Shell itself. So because of this compromise, they've been able to get away for all these years. And of course, people did not rise up to take this type of actions. And I believe that we cannot at this point still endure and let Shell walk away. So we are suing Shell, we are suing the regulator as well to ensure that they come and answer and ensure that the place is restored. So Shell and the likes were getting away because they make all the profits that they don't make elsewhere, they make here in Nigeria because they don't follow the rules. And they are double standards. So back home, people see them as normal human beings in their countries, but here they are atrocious monsters.
Well, King Dakolo, thank you for joining us on Africa Update, and hopefully we'll be able to speak to you once the legal process has begun from the 22nd of July. Thank you for your time on Africa Update.
Thank you. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you, and to you too. That was King Bubaraye Dakolo Agada, the ninth of Ekpetiama Kingdom in Nigeria, joining us on the line.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has entered its economic development with three of its development partners, Spain, Germany, and the European Union, as it deepens the efforts to ensure adequate security and good governance. Now, the agreement signed in Abuja ahead of the 67th summit of the Authority of Heads of State is worth over 150 million euros to be provided by the development partners and managed through a number of flawless checks and balances so that the impact will be felt in the areas where it is needed. Channel Africa's correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nusa Atohengbe, has more.
Signed ahead of two important gatherings of the regional body, the Youth Development and the 67th Summit of the Authorities of Heads of States and Government of Member Nations, attracted 100 million euros from Spain, while Germany and the European Union will jointly give the balance of 50 million euros on equal shares. The specifics were reached after an arduous discussion where the modalities that will enable citizens of ECOWAS to feel the impact of the planned projects were explained by the president of the Regional Bodies Commission, Omar Toure, during the signing of the agreement at the ECOWAS headquarters in Abuja. Toure noted that in the past, much attention and resources was directed towards holding seminars and workshops, leaving so little for the provision of relevant infrastructural development that could impact on the people within the region. He called for a reduction of such activities and greater attention to be given to projects implementation.
Let us focus on delivery. Let us focus on concrete results on the ground. Let us reduce workshops. Let us reduce trainings. Let us reduce validation activities, validation workshops. It beats the imagination of all of us to see the amount of resources we dedicate to training and overtraining. I think we need to be frank as partners and focus on delivery on the ground. We should not reduce these partnerships to workshops, and workshops.
Speaking of our country's relationship with development efforts in West Africa at the occasion, the Spanish ambassador to Nigeria, Maria Valesco, whose country is to provide the 100 million euros of the budget's fund, noted that ECOWAS has shown the desire to grow and overcome the challenges of insecurity and constraints of development. She commended the regional body for the continued effort and says the agreement being signed between it and the West African body will go a long way to making sure that the expectations of the people of West Africa are satisfactorily completed.
Today, ECOWAS stands as a powerful example of this long-term vision. In a world facing growing uncertainty, this region continues to pursue its vision of a peaceful and prosperous area governed by strong institutions that uphold fundamental freedoms and promote inclusive and sustainable development.
Germany, on its part, expressed the belief that regional integration will promote economic development and political stability, among other requirements that will help to promote peace and prosperity. The German envoy, Dorothy Janetz Wenzer says her country has been of tremendous support to ECOWAS over the years and will continue to give necessary assistance that would promote regional stability and good governance.
Germany has continuously supported ECOWAS and its member states in this process, and we believe that regional integration promotes economic development, political stability, inclusive societies, and environmental protection, amongst other things. Hence, we are honored to support ECOWAS Vision 2050 on building a citizen-centered community for peace and prosperity.
The fund will help ECOWAS in the drive to ensure even economic development, promote intra- and inter-Africa trade, and deter insecurity, which has been a hallmark of the region for some years now. Meanwhile, the 67th Summit of the Authorities of ECOWAS Heads of States and Government, which opened in Abuja at the weekend, has ended with numerous protocols that will promote the greater regional integration, commitment to peace and security, and regional trade with a view to promoting and actualizing the purpose of the African Continental Free Trade Zone. Sierra Leonean President Julius Bill was elected the new chairman of the regional body, taking over that responsibility from Nigeria's Bola Tinubu after his 2 terms on the seat. From Lagos, I am Collins Nosa Atohengbe for Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
It is 22 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Iran's top commander of the country's armed forces has vowed to retaliate after the United States struck the country's nuclear sites this weekend. Israel launched airstrikes targeting military infrastructure in Iran this morning, with Iran launching its own strike on Israel. And to unpack this for us, we are joined on the line by Musam Dunge, a political analyst at the University of Dundee in the United Kingdom. Musa, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Now, Musa, what do you think U.S. President Donald Trump why do you think he decided to enter the fray? He did say he was going to give it about 2 weeks before, making a decision, calling for a continued roundtable, but also saying that when he called Iran to the table to have continued discussions, they did not listen.
Well, yes, certainly. I mean, we're in interesting times, right? I mean, we're dealing with a president who is very much an unconventional president, and he makes foreign policy on the whim. I mean, a few months before he entered power, he was the man who vowed to ensure that there'd be peace in the Middle East and that the United States wouldn't be involved in any foreign wars. In fact, Trump's very political genesis in 2015 stems from his criticism of American involvement in both Afghanistan and Iraq. And so all of a sudden, here he finds himself in the Middle East with a partner like Israel that has done its own operation, which in many ways was very strategic. They were forcing the Americans' hands to enter this particular conflict. Remember, a few months ago when Trump was in the Middle East for his tour, he didn't fly and visit Israel at all. It wasn't part of his itinerary. And many felt that there were now divisions and tensions in terms of that relationship. But Trump is governed by popularity, by being in the news. And so watching Fox News, I think, probably inspired him. Watching the neocons on Fox News pushing and agitating against Iran definitely must have pushed the president to then take the action that he did. And he felt the confidence to do that, given that Iran's military capacity to retaliate has been hit hard by Israel's own strikes. And I think that sort of coordinated effort between the two will be very interesting to see when one now deals with Iran's retaliation, or possible retaliation, that is.
And just the thought of retaliation, we've seen the impact it's had on the different currencies across the globe and the oil price. I mean, it's escalated in a long time with very high numbers, high figures. The impact of this crisis that is seemingly unfolding will reverberate across the globe, especially impacting the African continent.
Certainly, you bring a very good point, right? Because Iran, we know, holds strategic control over the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very key trading area. And so, in terms of oil trade can be impacted. We could see Iran strike oil trade in that manner, which means, of course, as you put it so right, oil prices increasing, and there lies the inflationary pressure for the rest of the world, for the global economy. And as you've put it so right, Africa would be very much impacted, because Africa's impact would lie on two places. One, on Trump's tariff wars that will impact Africa in terms of trade. But on the other hand, you have this inflationary pressure from oil prices. So certainly there's that impact. And many may argue that, in fact, Trump's strike of Iran also has to do with access to oil. And I would argue not American access to oil necessarily, but it has to do with the access to oil by America's adversaries and rivals, such as China, such as the Russians. That, I think, is where America is also, or rather, that is what influenced Trump's decision here. I think he wanted to send a message to China, whom it also, the relationship there isn't the best at the moment, as China and America also flesh out their own sort of trade deal, and there's the issue of Taiwan in the Pacific. So there are many geopolitical things that I think were built in the calculation of this particular decision by the American president. And Iran now has the time, maybe it has the space to respond, but its military capabilities have been very much impacted by the Israeli operation, and it will be interesting to see how they respond.
But let's speak about whether these leaders really know what Iran has. Because for the longest time, they've always been reports and analysis of what they have. The IAEA went through and did their checks and balances, but do they really know what Iran has?
Yeah, certainly. Look, they may speak of the intelligence that they have, but I mean, if we, for example, look at the Fordow nuclear facility that is built deep underground in the mountain, right? We still haven't had full reports or final reports of how much damage truly was done, because already there were reports that a few days prior to this attack by the Americans, there were trucks seen loading off, nuclear products and goods out of the facilities. So, at this point, reports are preliminary that say that America has been impactful. We know how Trump has boasted about what a spectacular attack this was. But, we're going to have to wait a few weeks to find the final analysis in terms of the damage done. And of course, Iran still has its allies in the region. So the Houthis in Yemen, whom, remember, Trump struck a deal with the Houthis in May, a ceasefire deal. But now with this attack on Iran, it is likely that ceasefire deal will fall apart, and it is likely then that the Houthis will re-enter the fray in attacking American assets in the region. And of course, look, Iran has a huge military in terms of the size of its ground forces. But whether Iran will take that gamble of then activating its military in that way, I think is doubtful. It would want to avoid an escalation, especially because none of its allies, interestingly, have shown interest in coming in a strong way in support of it, beyond verbal sort of criticism of America. China and Russia haven't made a vow to defend Iran in any meaningful way. And that is very interesting. And I think that also factors in Iran's calculations as it determines how to retaliate.
Now, Musa, another spanner in the works is the possibility of the usage of AI. Have these visuals been verified? Has Iran confirmed that, yes, this is the impact that we are facing? Because they're quite guarded. They're basically saying, well, it's happened, but not really much of an impact. And then there's also the flip side of the coin when you look at the impact of Iran's attack on Israel and how we don't know the exact figures of what is coming out of Israel, but when we look at the buildings and the cities that are seemingly having been destroyed, it says a lot.
Yes, certainly. I mean, Iran's expectations, even I would actually argue Israel's expectations when Iran first retaliated was that the number of casualties on the Israeli side would number between 400 and 800. But, reports only say about 24 Israelis have been killed by the Iranian strikes. And, as much as the Iron Dome is strong, it cannot block every missile attack that comes through from Iran, especially when especially when there's an overflow. But the problem is that Iran has limited stockpiles at this point, right? If they've used about 500 to 1,000 of their missiles, they're left with about half at this point. So how long can they stay in the fray? Where Israel has the advantage that it has strong and superior air power, and that can go on for months on end, and with American support and possibly British support, that is likely to then gain momentum. So, at this point, it's anyone's guess, but you can understand the strategy of being guarded here, especially for Iran. This is the Iranian regime faces the pressure that inside Iran there are democratic sort of pressure points, calls for regime change. And so that is why Trump, you see him even in his latest truth post, he mentions this idea of making Iran great again, NIGA, right? And so it seems like for the supreme leader, for the Supreme Council, this is a tricky point, and they have to be guarded because so many of their leadership have been killed in the Israeli mission. And so the question here is taking out all of these leaders, meaning that Iran no longer has the capacity to create a nuclear bomb? I don't think so. They've been doing this for years. All of the knowledge accumulated. While you can kill someone, as somebody put it on one of the news channels, you can't kill knowledge.
Yeah.
And that is
Musa,
therefore what's going to be played out.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time. And, already there are reports that, the foreign minister of Iran, Dr. Araghchi, has arrived in Russia, and he is meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin. So it will be interesting to find out exactly what these discussions will hold. And it started that he's got a message from the Ayatollah. So it will be an interesting discussion. But unfortunately, we have run out of time and are going to leave it there for today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That is Musa Mdunge, political analyst at the University of Dundee in the United Kingdom. And he was joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has entered into economic development with three of its development partners, which are Spain, Germany and European Union, as it deepens the efforts to ensure adequate security and good governance. The Eastern Cape government in South Africa says the death toll from the recent floods in Umtata has now risen to 95. 86 of the victims have been identified and collected, and their families and efforts are continuing to identify the remaining bodies. And Iran's ambassador to the UN has called the U.S. attacks on the Iranian nuclear facilities blatant aggression. The U.S. State Department has issued global warning advising American citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you, Onele, for those headlines. I will say good afternoon to Chanduko Legege with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. South African football club Orlando Pirates, who finished second in the Betway Premiership and reached the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League last season, have finally appointed a new coach Moroccan Abdeslam Odo, who coached Marumo Gallants last season, will take over from Jose Ribeiro, who had a very successful stint with Bucks. The appointment of the 46-year-old former Moroccan professional footballer may come as a surprise, but Odo is a UEFA Pro license holder, and during his brief tenure at Gallants, he coached the team to 5 wins, 4 draws and just 3 defeats in 12 matches. One of those victories was a 2-0 win against the Buccaneers at the Free State Stadium in March. Still in football news, former Banyana defender Nokoma Tlou has advised Banyana to be united if they want to make it far in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco starting in July. Banyana go into the competition as defending champions after clinching the title in 2022. The former Banyana international says the team must remain united and work together, and only if they do that will they successfully defend their WAFCON crown. Banyana are in Group C with Ghana, Tanzania and Mali. The opening match will be against Ghana, a team that missed out on the 2022 WAFCON, and Matlo acknowledges that it will not be an easy game.
To play in Ghana, it's not easy. It's going to be tough, but I think if the team, they can work together, they can pull each other and work as a team. I think we can do well against Ghana, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be walk in the park. They need to work even harder to win the first game, because it's very important to win first game.
World Football Governing Body FIFA President Gianni Infantino has launched a staunch defense of the Club World Cup, the tournament in its first edition in the current 32-team format after being created by Infantino has faced widespread criticism for a variety of reasons. Global player organization FIFPro have highlighted the additional demands and an expanded tournament will place on players and the negative impact of not having a summer break, with some stars having previously threatened to boycott the competition over workload concerns. Several games have also been played in front of swathes of empty seats, while the extreme weather of the US at this time of the year and concerns over whether the $1 billion prize fund will unbalance leagues when teams return home have similarly been noted. In cricket news, Proteas men's team captain Temba Bavuma has been ruled out of the upcoming 2-match test series against Zimbabwe due to a left hamstring strain. Bavuma sustained the injury while batting during South Africa's second innings on day 3 of the ICC World Test Championship final against Australia at Lord's Cricket Ground. He is set to undergo further scans to assess the extent of the injury. Keshav Maharaj will captain the side in his absence. The squad will depart for Bulawayo on Tuesday, the 24th of June from OR Tambo International Airport. The first test gets underway on the 28th of June, followed by the second test from the 6th of July, with both matches taking place at Queen's Sports Club. In East Africa, Kenya is preparing a contingent of 45 athletes for the 2025 CAA Under-18, Under-20 African Championships holding in Abeokuta, Nigeria. According to Athletics Kenya Youth Committee Secretary Joseph Ilovi, 45 athletes are expected to represent the East African country at the championships holding between the 16th and the 20th of July. Kenya's 2-day trials, which ended on Saturday, was used to select Team Kenya for the championships. After the trials, Ilovi said the athletes will head to camp from the 30th of June to the 13th of July before departing to Nigeria on the 14th of July. He revealed that under-20 athletes must meet qualifying standards set by CAA, but the under-18 category is open. That is all for now. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sports, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Stella Longwe pamalonje.
palitu sokoma pano pa malonje kumvera nyimbo za mu africa kusangalala kupeza moyo akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino pano pa malonje ndiyetu apa tili ndi katswiri oyimba ameneyu ndi katswiri wa dziko la malawi amene akukhala mdziko la south africa ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatuzani kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwinobwino kwambiri, chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwinobwino.
Ayi aziwoneka chiliyonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa akuti kumenya yonse aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe.
Well, thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our business news. It is rather with our sports update, and it is time for our business news with Buntle Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and a very good afternoon, to our listeners. In our top business story this afternoon, the Jubilee Commission has called for urgent and systemic reforms to address the spiraling debt and development crises devastating countries in the global south. The Vatican-backed commission, convened by Pope Francis, says only a recognition of this shared responsibility will lead to a sustainable solution. Dimagaza Lushora filed this report.
The Jubilee Commission is a panel of experts in debt and development to report on the growing threat to the world's poorest countries. It says only a recognition that this should be a shared responsibility will lead to a sustainable solution. Over 50% of Africa's population live in countries that spend more on debt service than on education or healthcare.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo kutuli bwanji ndi
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Energy markets have opened for the first trading session since the U.S. attack on Iran, with oil prices jumping to a 5-month high. On opening, prices rose by 3%, but went down to around 2.75. The increase is not as dramatic as some analysts had feared. Oil prices were expected to spike following the attack over the weekend. The BBC's Katie Silver has the details.
What we have seen when it comes to oil prices is that regime change can have a huge impact. For example, JP Morgan, they've crunched the numbers and said that when we see regime change, that can lead to spikes of 76% in the oil price. The other interesting one that we've been watching as well is the Strait of Hormuz. It's a 33-kilometre passage. About a fifth of the world's oil passes through there every day. We're also hearing from analysts that if they do disrupt this, we might see oil rise between $90 and $95 a barrel, currently trading around $79. So that could have a really significant impact for many consumers.
South African Cooperative Government Minister Velengosini Hlabisa has highlighted the lack of revenue base for collection as one of the factors contributing to poor performance of some of the country's municipalities. This follows a report by the Auditor General which revealed that only 41 of the country's 257 municipalities achieved clean audits for the 2024-2025 financial year. Hlabisa says the well-performing municipalities are overshadowed by the majority of struggling municipalities. He was speaking at a high-level dialogue dialogue in Midrand, Johannesburg, where political parties have convened as part of the ongoing review of the 1998 White Paper on Local Government.
A number of municipalities constantly fail to spend MIG and other grants allocation. Some of our municipalities are not viable as they have no revenue base for collection. As a result, they are classified as distressed, and some of them are literally bankrupt. Sometimes they are unable to pay salaries.
The two-day Glamping Expo has concluded on a high note in Johannesburg, South Africa. The event brought together glamping companies and enthusiasts from across the country. It's an annual platform for businesses across the glamping value chain to showcase their glamping innovations, products and network with industry peers and seek potential collaborations and investments. Sisi Sakhalo has more.
Glamping caters for individuals seeking unique, luxurious camping experiences amidst nature. Whether you are in search of luxury tents with hotel amenities, scents to make your tent smell divine, eco-friendly lights, even travel agents who can guide you through the glamping journey were all represented at the expo. Clary Travel Agency was founded in 2011 and is based in Soweto in the Gauteng province of South Africa. The company was one of the exhibitors at the Glamping Expo. They deal with domestic and international travel from luxury to middle and budget.
The European Union's Commissioner for Industrial Strategy, Stefan Sejourne, says European Union countries should create joint reserves of rare earth minerals to prevent supply chain disruptions and economic blackmail from China. Sejourne says all European countries today have strategic reserves for oil and gas and should do the same for strategic raw materials. He said he would launch further tenders this year to promote alternative raw material sources. The EU announced last month 13 new raw material projects outside the bloc to increase its supplies of metals and minerals essential to its competitiveness in the energy transition as well as defense and aerospace. Now for a first look at our indicators this afternoon, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 Naira 547. In Botswana, it's 13 Pula 33. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 56, and Zambia is 23 Kwacha 9. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 Real 51. Russia, 78 rubles 39. India, it's 86 rupees 49. China, 7 yuan 18, and South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 Rand 99 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,366 per ounce, while platinum is at $1,288 per ounce. And the price of Brent crude oil is at $77.79 a barrel this afternoon. And those are your business news at this hour. I'll be back with more in the next hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you to Buntle Hetbush with our business news. It is 12:48 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. As South Africa marks Youth Month, a focus that is mainly overlooked is access to mentorship, career guidance, and support networks, which non-profit organization Protec believes is needed to bridge the gap between school and success. And to discuss this further, we are joined on the line by Balin Moodley, the CEO of Protec. Balin, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Now, what do our youth need to thrive in the world of today?
Well, like you pointed out when you introduced, the academics is absolutely an essential, and there's a lot of focus going to be on that. But we believe, and based on some of our research, is that there are definitely things that haven't been done or haven't been done properly to give learners these chances. For example, life skills and soft skills. Schools often focus on the academic content, but neglect essential skills like communication, emotional intelligence, resilience, problem solving. I mean, those are skills needed today more than ever. If one looks at career guidance, many of our learners come from rural or, township areas that do not fully, offer them the kind of information that they need to make proper decisions. So, especially in the under-resourced areas, people don't get that type of information. So that's another one. Then work readiness, workplace readiness. Skills there like teamwork, accountability, time management, professional etiquette are really taught but are crucial for success. Anyone will tell you when they start working, there were so many things that they didn't possess, to make them successful. And then, of course, something you mentioned earlier as well, mentorship and networking. Young people often don't have access to mentors who can guide them through career and life decisions. Many of them, they see the people, that especially the people in our areas that, gangsters or something, because they've got, the wealth, they look at them as mentors. And those are the wrong, mentors to have. So we need to be doing something as communities in order to change that.
Now, if we look at our youth today, it seems like the thinking or the mentality of a lot of our youth is that they are owed something, that somebody needs to step up and do something for them without them taking up the challenge and moving in a direction or asking for help. How do you think communities need to respond to this thinking of young people?
Yeah, no, what you think is true in most instances. But, if one sacks a person from, even the primary school, one's got to ask, who are the first role models in these learners' lives? And it's the parents and caregivers, and they instill, values, discipline, and curiosity. I mean, that's necessary for them to develop as individuals. Then, of course, teachers and schools have to play their role in terms of integrating life skills into the curriculum. Now, when we say that, learners are expecting certain things, if we look at where most of these learners come from, especially, those that we work with, the quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools in South Africa, many of them, do not have the luxury to turn to anyone, or they may not be offered that opportunity. So I think it's our roles in terms of, like the teachers and schools to play their role in fostering this mentorship program. Then, of course, you've got community leaders and NPOs working within many of these communities can offer structured mentorship and workshops that, expose to different careers. And then let's not forget peers and older students. Learners can, that peer mentorship is so powerful, especially in relatable context. If someone is thinking about a science career or a STEM career and turning to someone that's already in STEM, just gives them, that handout that they need. Then, if you look at our communities with limited opportunities, we need to encourage volunteering and community involvement. This will get learners involved to build responsibility and leadership. Now, if we make this something that is expected of them, then, they won't be purely looking at the handout. Then create local mentorship networks using alumni, professionals, and retirees. These individuals are already available or are already in these communities. Host career days and skills workshops in schools and community centers. This is something that's possible through, especially the networks, if one brings some kind of structure into this. Promote digital literacy through access to online learning platforms and basic tech training. And support small entrepreneurship by teaching, budgeting, marketing, and business planning. These are skills that there's so many individuals within communities that already possess. Apologies. And we can, just put some structure behind it in order to make this work, and for these learners to have, people that they can approach.
Now, it's also interesting that what you touch on, sometimes looking at, the skills development, doesn't it also go back to what is being taught in our schools, whether from primary level or prep all the way to high school, where today's world, you won't walk into a school and find that there's agriculture as a subject, or there's woodwork as a subject. Whereas back in the day, these were subjects that would teach a skill to different children and find something to keep them busy, not only focusing on sports, trying to diversify the different areas that children can look at.
No, absolutely, and whatever you're saying is absolutely right. The fact is, we've got in Gauteng, where we've got these schools of specialization that's creeping in now. And that's where we're seeing actually these kind of skills that you're referring to are being taught, and successfully so. The fact is, the world of work has changed so much and is continuing to change, with especially digital and AI. But we forget that we're still going to need some of these other skills way beyond, the digital and AI environment as well. So we've got to continue looking, and it's those skills that I'm referring to where we can do it within our communities, because there are people with those skills already that can transfer these skills to the youngsters. But I think the schools of specialization, if we can broaden that out even further than we have so far in South Africa, I think we'll be on the right path.
Oh, Balin, I wish we could continue with this conversation, but we have to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's Balin Moodley, the CEO of ProTech, a non-profit organization in South Africa, joining us on the line. It is that time of the day where we say good afternoon and a happy Monday to Tebogo Lekuleni. How are you today?
I am fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Did you have a good weekend?
Good weekend, yeah. And yourself?
Relaxed weekend. The normal game drive, and then just relaxed, did nothing for the whole of yesterday, which is good. Sometimes you just need to take a breather.
Yes. So what's coming up today?
So what's coming up on the show this afternoon, South African fintech company called Float has partnered up with payment company Adumo to let shoppers pay in 4 monthly installments for their purchases using their existing credit cards. No extra interest. It works instantly. All you need to do is pay an upfront fee of 25%, and the rest is spread out over a 3-month period. Okay. Retailers like Safari Outdoor, Verimark, and Cellu City are already offering it, and they're hoping to get shoppers to buy more and boost their sales, which I think will help a lot of people cash flow wise.
Yes.
But I'm a bit skeptical about the idea personally. This is just my own personal opinion. And then we have to talk about property. It's a Monday today. We're talking about flipping properties, buying a property, flipping it, and then selling it. Is it a good idea? Is it a smart financial idea? And is it an investable idea? Is it one that can yield profit? And what are the challenges and shortcomings that you will experience if you were to try and venture into such? That's all coming up on the upside.
That's coming up at the top of the hour with Tebogo Lekuleni. And from myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, it's been a great day. Continue with us on our social media platforms. And thank you to our producer, Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator, Didimalo Macau, and social media, Elaine Bengani. It's been a great day. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.